Andy Dunne, it's full time here at the Aviva Stadium. It's Ireland 35, Fiji 17. How did you enjoy the game?
It wasn't a classic, I would say. But I enjoyed some of the parts, particularly I think how workmanlike we were in the first half. Well, that's not huge on entertainment value. It's actually really valuable to see that this Irish team can mix it and can play a kind of a physical, mundane, workman-like type of style, and because we've been really treated in the last few months to top quality rugby from them. Today was a bit more understated, but a valuable game for the squad and for the management overall. So not a classic, but it told us a few important pieces of information about this group.
And it was quite a shaky start to begin with.
Yeah, quite a loose start. There was a little bit of aimless kicking actually, and again I've probably been critical of this, and many people have. There's aimless box kicking from deep, a poor one from Gibson-Park, and a poor crossfield kick from Carberry. It really, I suppose, it set the tone for the initial 5 minutes. It looked like we were going to be quite fast and loose. Fiji capitalised on that and took the lead, and deservingly so. It was one of the better tries that was created in the whole game. But somebody somewhere on that group, whether it was Furlong or Carberry or decision makers on the field, clearly changed tack. After about 5-6 minutes, we stuck the ball up our jumpers and played a lot of rugby that was characteristic of the Joe Schmidt era, very workmanlike. We held possession for long periods in the Fijian 22. We got one-out runners off Gibson-Park who were just blunt force trauma and just running into contact, holding possession, recycling the ball, and we ground them down for those two tries initially. Nick Timoney scoring both, and I think Treadwell was denied a third by TMO. So that really got us back into the game. It wasn't pretty to watch, but it was the right choice given the poor start we made.
And that's quite impressive in itself, to be able to do that without the likes of Johnny Sexton sort of pulling the strings that way.
Yeah, they really have grown as a group. I think Furlong, you interviewed him during the week about the surprise he had of being made a captain, and he talked about the whole leadership group in the squad and how they've been empowered. They weren't sure what Farrell wanted, he said, but they clearly are growing, and I think they're being given that space to change tactics on the field themselves. I think it's a formidable combination when you've got a group that is now quite deep. You've got a group that has got a sense of independence on the field to make the right call or to change tactical approaches. I love seeing that, I have to say, in any sports team. This Irish team have really grown into it. So yeah, while it, like I said, it wasn't really entertaining, it's great to see that an Irish team who have been known to be good entertainers in recent months can go and do the dogged, kind of dirty work and the less glamorous side of the game. And they showed respect to Fiji as well by realising they couldn't be too fast and loose and they were going to be punished for it. So they were smart.
And talk about the strength and depth within this squad. So everything you were talking about there, maybe being versatile, being able to bring these lads off the bench, some of them getting their first caps today. It's important to have that looking ahead to a World Cup. I know it's next year, but the preparation is now.
Yeah, I think there's quite an impressive level of depth in terms of what's happening with the group. We look at the front row. We see Tom O'Toole coming on at tight head today. We see Lockman starting, I think his first cap. And then last week we saw Beelum kind of come on and hold his own. There's three props now who are holding their own in the international scene. And it gives us that, I suppose, gives everyone a little bit of reassurance and confidence that we're not going to be overly reliant on Furlong and Porter and Healy should injuries happen. Obviously we want a fit Furlong like we want a fit Sexton, and things can happen in this game in the flick of a switch. So ideally those fellas stay fit, but it's nice to see that we're developing that strength and depth in the front row. And similarly you look at the likes of Treadwell, who's been superb for Ulster. He's a big lump. He adds something different to Tyg Byrne, for example, a different type of player. And then you see the likes of Timoney and even the likes of Max Deegan coming off the bench. They're not all getting regular exposure even in their provinces for the crucial European games, for example. but Farrell's willing and able to give them a chance. And I think what he's doing is, by construction and by design, he's building a depth in the group by giving people opportunities, showing faith, and then they get confidence as a result. So I think it's just very smart from the whole management group that, you know, the addition of those A fixtures, those games down against the Maori in New Zealand over the summer, just additional games, additional time in the squad, additional involvement for players. We're suddenly looking at a group that's really, really grown in strength and depth, and players stepping up to the plate at an international level does wonders for their confidence when they go back to the province too. So we really are in rude health, and it's brilliant.
It is quite brave from Andy Farrell, maybe quite risky too, when there's players not playing as much with their provinces, to be able to give them a chance here at international level, because I know he spoke about that quite a lot, that, you know, I need to see them at this level to see can they cope with it.
Yeah, and I think you know, when a young player gets backed like that, in the vast majority of cases, I think they rise up to it as opposed to shrink away. I mean, there are obviously instances, and we've all seen it in the past, where new young players or first timers coming in getting capped do have nervous starts, and that's entirely normal. But in this group, they seem to come in into quite a seamless environment where they're very much integrated very quickly. And even the likes of Jack Crowley coming on today, his touch kicking was superb. His first kick in international rugby from the touch line in a full stadium, and he nails it. So again, yeah, there's a risk, I suppose, associated with bringing in these kids or young players, for want of a better word, but fortune favours the brave. I think this Farrell management group are brave, and they do embrace risk at times, and I think they're being rewarded for it.
And as you mentioned, Jack Crowley there, so he came on for Joey Carberry, he went off, there was a high tackle on him that actually resulted in a red card. So just to talk about the game a little bit, in that second half in particular, Fiji were down to 14 men, they were down to 13 men for a period of time. I don't know, Ireland weren't as, I suppose, clinical as they could have been?
Yeah, I certainly, with the scoreline at about 28-17 and Fiji down to 13 men, it looked like possibly it was going to be one of those days where we rack up 50 points. But to Fiji's credit, they held possession for the vast majority of that 10 minutes. And we're down to 13 men. They were very industrious, very I suppose there's lots of stereotypes describing the Fijian play, and industrious isn't the word that you tend to use. They stuck the ball up the jumper, and they were very pragmatic in that period. And all credit to them for that, because it could have gone away from them with 13 men for sure. But they were resilient, and really we only just scraped away, I suppose, at the lead then with the late try from Kane Healy. Sorry, it was Mac Hansen. Obviously, we turned over from the scrum. Craig Casey had a little snipe up the left, a nice wide ball to Hansen, who's the second winger to score on the day, with Balakoon's try in the first half. But then Healy got, I suppose, a try that was more workmanlike again, just crashing over from close. But yeah, we didn't run away with it. We didn't look like we were going to run away with it. I think that's probably more to do with Fiji and giving them a little bit of credit as opposed to Ireland slacking off.
And Joey Carberry, how do you think he got on? Like, he went off, as we said, early in that second half. It's his first start since the Six Nations against Italy in February.
Yeah, I think for Joey, he did very well. I think he didn't have any starring or shining outstanding moments, but very often as an out half, I'd often equate that to maybe if a good referee gets through a game, you don't notice the referee as much. A good out half gets through a game, you don't necessarily notice him because the team is working on high functioning all around him. He included players very well around him. He varied points of attack. He varied his kicking game a little bit. I was critical. He had an aimless kick from deep early on. It was quite dangerous and didn't come off. But other than that was the only blot on the copybook. He had an excellent run, and delighted to see him upright and laughing after the game, because that was a heavy contact, shoulder to the face. Tuasui was the flank forward from Fiji who did it, and it was a reckless challenge. It was nice to see Carberry jog off, and that was obviously precautionary from that point of view. It didn't look like any kind of injury or concussion, so that was great to see.
And how important is it for him to be getting this game time, ahead of the Six Nations, ahead of the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's important for his confidence. I think he's had such a difficult couple of years. I I would love to see him probably be a bit more of an attacking threat, because I think that's in his nature. I think I've referenced before, I think his first European start for Leinster as an out half against Montpellier, I covered it for News Talk about 5-6 years ago. He beat 11 defenders in one half, and it was his first start. And at that stage, he was really on the crest of a wave in terms of youthful exuberance and taking risks. And now I suppose he's a bit more battle hardened, and he's been through some grim injuries, and his game's become a bit more conservative, and I can understand why, but I'd love to see him flourish a bit more in terms of his own running capacity, be more of a threat, and I think he can balance that nicely with, I suppose, his improved overall game management, his improved kicking, and it's just great to see a player of his calibre staying relatively injury free for a period of time, and hopefully that lasts for him and he gets a good run into the Six Nations.
And it's 2 wins from 2 now out of the Autumn International Series. Australia next week. How important is it, I suppose, to get 3 wins out of 3 to kick on now to look forward to the Six Nations?
I'm not so sure they're going to. I mean, obviously, success breeds success, confidence. I don't think it's a huge problem if we don't get a win against Australia. In fact, from managing expectations and dampening down expectations, it might do no harm. Without sounding stupid or pessimistic, I mean, that would be 12, 13 wins in a row in Aviva, then you'd be going into a Six Nations, or a last Six Nations before a World Cup. Sometimes a little loss sprinkled in here and there doesn't hurt, but no, I'm sure they're obviously not going to think that way themselves as a group. But I don't think it's the end of the world if we don't get the win next week. I think what is important is that we get, I think, the right players, exposure, time on the field, preparation. I suppose preparation for Six Nations is important, but it's a one-off test against Australia, and lots of people look at it just in that light. But I think an injury-free test would be nice, and we don't get any serious injuries going into the Six Nations. Good performance, and maybe, who knows, maybe an opportunity for 1 or 2 selections, maybe out of left field again from Farrell, to just continue to build that strength and depth.
We're always talking about the strength and depth when we talk about this team. Is this the strongest Ireland team you've seen? I believe it is. I believe because of their versatility, because of their strength and depth, because they're unpredictable, they can play different styles of rugby. They can play close, ugly rugby. They can play beautiful rugby. They've a great attitude, they've a great defence, they've a great work rate. Their coaching team is, I heard Will Greenwood on during the week, it was an interesting insight, saying if you're going to pick a fight with any coaching team, you wouldn't pick it with the Irish team. They're a hardy bunch, and they've all been through a lot as players, and hugely experienced and successful players. And I think they're bringing that playing experience and allowing that come into the group. They're a battle-hardened group, and they've a nice mix of youth and experience. There's almost nothing there to criticise at the moment, and that's fine. It's nice to be in that kind of positive mind frame, and even today, when the game became stale, you see the feel-good factor in Irish rugby. There was looked like a record Mexican wave at one stage. It just kept going and going, and the crowd were loud and boisterous, and that's just a signal of I suppose how happy Irish people are with the team at the moment, and they deserve all the plaudits they're getting. Brilliant, Andy. Thanks so much.
Thanks a million.